Akira. It's one of the most well-known and praised anime films of all time. Almost every fan of anime hears about this movie sooner or later, but what do they actually remember about it? That it looked amazing, but the story is confusing and the ending made no sense? This was my reaction after I watched it for the first time. But after multiple viewings and reading the entire manga, I finally understood Akira's story and the timeless message that is so important. The movie released in 1988 and was adapted from Katsuhiro Otomo's 1982 manga of the same name. The film had a $9 million production budget, making it the most expensive anime at the time. The movie was popular in Japan upon release, but only became popular in the West almost entirely by word alone. Akira is now widely regarded as one of the greatest animated movies of all time. It prompted an increase in popularity of anime movies in the US and outside of Japan. Akira has influenced numerous works in animation, comics, film, music, television, and video games. It inspired a wave of Japanese cyberpunk works, including manga and anime series such as Ghost in the Shell, live-action Japanese films such as Tetsuya the Iron Man, which I did a video on, and video games such as Hideo Kojima's Metal Gear Solid. The world of entertainment would definitely be a duller place had it not been for the anime Akira. But what about the manga that started it all? Why is it that we almost never hear about the Akira manga? It could be because majority of audiences find it more accessible to watch a 2-hour film over reading a 2,000-page manga. The problem is, you're only getting 1/6 of the actual story. And this is probably why most people are left confused after having just seen the movie. The movie is great as far as film adaptations go, and made good use of what it chose to keep in its 2-hour window. But ultimately, a major theme is skipped over, and it's perhaps my favorite theme in that story. The story is set in the futuristic 2019 and tells the story of Kaneda, a young leader of a biker gang whose childhood friend Tetsuya obtains incredible telekinetic abilities, eventually threatening an entire military complex amidst chaos and rebellion in the futuristic metropolis of Neo-Tokyo. In the beginning of the story, society is already trying to rebuild itself after a catastrophic event. The city of Neo-Tokyo is filled with violence, and the youth turn to joining dangerous biker gangs in order to survive. Even the schools are filled with gangs and drugs, and the teachers are violent towards the students. What is driving anyone to keep on existing in this society is what you keep asking yourself. But the story allows you to dive into the lives of these unfortunate characters, and we find out what form of hope is driving them. Perhaps the biggest example of a character receiving a form of hope is Tetsuya. He was always my favorite character since I first watched the movie, and now I know why. He's relatable. We find out that his childhood consisted of being bullied because he was weak. His only source of hope was in his best friend Kaneda, who always protected him. Later on, when Tetsuya gains his powers, he finds a new source of hope and protection in himself. I remember in high school barely grabbing on to any hope whatsoever, and watching this character Tetsuya struggling as I had. I remember wishing that I too could be given the powers that he had, and freeing myself from the path and take on the world like Tetsuya did. It's even more interesting in the manga because Tetsuya is even stronger, managing to even blow a hole in the moon at one point, messing up the tides and causing even more destruction. And if that's not power, I don't know what is. This whole dreaming about having power is what also fuels the superhero craze that we see today, but that's a whole nother topic. There were moments in this manga that simply left me breathless. For example, there's this moment when Tetsuya and Akira's paths cross, and we're left with this amazing moment where both characters just stare at each other, and it's filled with such emotion that words alone aren't needed. And this is a testament to the power of visual media compared to, say, a novel. But it's really Otomo's skill as an illustrator that allow you to feel the emotion that characters give off without having them say anything. There's also that famous catastrophic explosion that you always see in posters about the manga, and there's a good reason for that. Just look at the incredible amount of detail. This level of destruction happens a few times throughout the story, and each time it happens, you were always left emotionally affected by it, and it never loses its effects. You basically feel the consequences that such an event causes, and there's no doubt that this is a reference to the catastrophic events that happened during World War II. The most profound thing was that society itself was somehow able to rebuild itself. People always find hope and continue on no matter what. And it's this powerful message that Akira portrays very well. What follows after the event is one of the most fascinating themes I've encountered in media, and my favorite aspect of this manga. A massive catastrophe causes a good portion of the cast to be wiped out. We then follow the remainder of the cast as they cope with the events of what happened. We watch them struggle both physically and mentally, and we are forced to ask ourselves the question of what would we do if we were in a similar situation? We'd be forced to start from scratch as a new civilization and choose whether to follow the previous generation or start a new empire and change it into something entirely different. The story leaves you thinking about whether or not all paths will eventually lead to the same outcome. But that's an answer we can never know. This theme of survival and starting all over again fascinates people, because that is what we all ask ourselves when we see a disaster happen. We forget about our modern lives and technology, and realize that technology may one day not be able to save us. There's also this theme about technology replacing the human body, which is portrayed by Tetsuya. Tetsuya keeps on pursuing more and more power than the human body is capable of achieving, which results in his body being forced to mutate and combine with technology around him, which then changes him into the form of a giant baby. I believe this is a metaphor for the birth of a new form of humanity, as we become more and more dependent on technology. We must always keep a part of our humanity within us, because it is what allows us to always feel that there is hope no matter what. Akira is a great depiction of hope during adversity, and it's the reason why people walk away from it feeling something. Humans throughout history have faced catastrophic events, but have always managed to continue moving on, even though all seem lost. Everything can be taken from you, and you will never know what tomorrow will bring. One thing that can never be taken from you is hope, and it's the only thing that you need. Hold it tight and never let it go, even as you race on into an uncertain future. I think the unknown of where the journey will lead us is what gives us hope. Whether it be good or bad, it is worth sticking around just to find out.